So welcome to another day of From Hustle to Holy, how to transform your business by igniting your divine feminine. We have today Paige Michelle. Paige, thanks so much for being with us today and sharing with us more about what you do and the importance of incorporating the divine feminine into our work and what we do.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So audience, Paige is a human potential and relationship expert and a business investor. She's viral on TikTok. She's a celebrity there. And she's actually editor-in-chief of Undefined the Mag. It's a digital, is it entrepreneur?
Edutainment
company that teaches this generation how to practically live their human design. I am so excited to get diving into this conversation because it's very much on our topic about you know, the masculine and feminine and just getting more in tune with who we are so we can operate from our highest most potential self. So before we dive into that conversation, I'd love to get to know you a little bit more and the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So where did you grow up? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so I grew up in the same city that I'm in right now. I've lived in other cities, but I grew up in a small town in Ohio, about 45 to an hour outside of Columbus, which is our capital. So it's nice because it's an hour away from all the big city stuff, and then you still have your hometown stuff. So yeah, I grew up here. My upbringing was normal. You know, my parents were, I think when people see me, they automatically make assumptions that maybe I came from I'm privileged, I'm white and, you know, by beauty standards, attractive. So I did have privilege, but I think that they assumed that I came from a background of wealth and abundance. And that's not the case. Both my parents worked on the factory line at a dryer plant, and they just retired this year. So, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. And all I knew was work really hard. And all I knew was work really hard. No matter how hard you work, we're still going to be stressed about money every single month. It's still going to be paycheck to paycheck. No matter how they showed up, how hard they worked, it didn't matter. There was a cap. So a lot of stress and anxiety, a lot of do energy in my house. And I grew up in the talented and gifted program. And I think sometimes when you are in that program and you are a little bit more advanced, it's boring. School becomes very boring because you just don't want to talk about what they're talking about. You're thinking about world issues and like philosophy and people's emotional intelligence. And so I just failed out of high school, basically almost had to retake my junior year, became a waitress until I had a holy moment. That's literally what I call it, is a holy moment. Katy Perry's Firework came on. Started as a legal assistant randomly, had never done that before, used my gifts for learning really quickly, doing that, and then started a blog. From there, the blog turned into social media. That turned into a business. That business turned into, 6 figures in 6 months. And it was hustle, work really hard, do. Very masculine until I burned out. I had my first child, I was overweight, just unhealthy, not glowing whatsoever. Burnt that to the ground, started with human design because I found it the same day I burnt the other business to the ground, and kind of started working with entrepreneurs again, but from the perspective of energetics, of alignment, of what are you even doing here? Why are you doing this? And it's just been, it's blown up ever since. And this was in 2016. So ever since then, I've been just using human design, teaching as many people as I can, and helping people improve their relationships with themselves and then with those that they care about.
Great. And so you mentioned growing up in a working parents, both parents worked in the household, and you watched them work really hard. So did you equate having to work really hard with generating money and in your business? And so in what ways do you see that watching your parents, how does that support, like there could be very empowering interpretation, right? So how do you see that watching your parents and how they worked in generating money. How do you see that that's now supported you and where you're at today?
Watching them from like more of an empowered place. Well, I mean, it was very, I think mostly what I got from that was the distinction, you know what I mean? The even just the epiphany of this cannot be it. You know what I mean? Like seeing that and being like, this cannot be it. There's no way, like something in me knew, like there is no way that you push, work really hard, show up every day. You're committed to your job. You do a fantastic job. And there's a cap like on how much you can make. And how I was like, this cannot be it. And so, yes, working hard, efforting, it actually, what it showed me was that, you know, it was that distinction. Like this can't be it. Like the little voice in my head was like, this is not it. Question this, you know, you need to be questioning this. So watching them work hard, I think that that's important to be committed. I learned commitment. I learned work ethic. I learned, you know, my parents both did great at their job. They showed up every day and they advanced as much as they could for the degrees that they didn't have. And as far as they could go on that ladder. But I mean, really, honestly, I didn't get any, I don't think it was empowering to me to look and see people working really, really hard and then burning out every single day. I think seeing that and then the distinction in my body and God being like, there's more, something different, like question this, was the biggest blessing for sure.
Right. So you knew that there was something more for you to tap into your highest potential.
Yeah.
That's
no matter what happened, I used to always tell my parents, I'm like, don't worry. Like every time I would get into trouble or get arrested or just like whatever trouble I was in, they were like, we just want you to figure it out. And like, don't worry. Like it's going to be okay. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So I don't know where that came from. I mean, I know now, but I didn't know.
Sure. This inner knowing. Yeah. You listened to the inner knowing. That's beautiful. So at what point, because you talked a lot about hustling. And so what point did you find that you were operating a lot out of your masculine energy and ways of being, or you might have been in a very masculine environment and you felt like this just doesn't feel right. There's something out of alignment. And what was that like for you?
It was in 2016. I had a feeling, my feminine had completely just been gaslighted by myself. It had been emotionally abused by myself. There was no emotional availability for myself. There was no container. I was working and doing and actioning, and there's no nurturing, like that really beautiful side of the masculine. That's just like the nurture. There was none of that. It was a toxic masculinity. And I remember being at a retreat, super stressed out because I was chained to my desk doing work. And we talked about money and why we were trying to create money. And my reason was for freedom, like to travel and have experiences and just freedom. Like I want to be able to do what I want when I want to do it. That's feminine. You know what I mean? Like the creativity that's like, I want to create whatever I want, whenever I want, the way that I want. And it was and I realized I couldn't do any of that because I had literally created these golden handcuffs in my own prison by how I'd set up my business and my doing. And I remember they were doing hot seats and I just sat there with my arms crossed and she's like, you need to uncross I was just so guarded and I was so in my masculine. Not only that, I had just had a baby. It was probably the most feminine time in my life. And I was overweight and there was no light. There was no radiance. There was none of that. There was no emotionality. And then I was completely emasculating my husband because I was in I was in more like unevolved masculine. Because I felt like I needed to take care of us because he wasn't, and all of the, emasculation tactics that you can, and anxious avoidant tactics you use. So I just was like, there's no way, like, they can't be like that. It cannot be. Again, it's that voice again that's like, no, there's more. Like, this can't be it. This cannot be it. So I burnt it all to the ground again. I just was like, this marriage is over. You know what I mean? As the structure is right now, is over. Like, I'm going to figure this out. You figure this out. And it was that moment. And that's when I stepped into my feminine was actually when I got pregnant with Ruby, who's my daughter. Because I knew that I was not going to raise her in the same environment that I had been raised in, with a completely switched masculine feminine. My mom was a masculine, my dad was a feminine, with living paycheck to paycheck, except for I was living client to client. And we were friends, Todd and I, my ex-husband, we were like partners, but it was like teammates. I was like, nope, that's not how I wanted to see my daughter see a feminine be treated. That's not the masculine example I want. So it was really that I was just like, okay, I'm having a girl. Absolutely not. So 2018 was when I really stepped into the femininity work. And it's been a process finding the balance between that feminine creativity and flow, radiance, magnificence versus power, drive, action, purpose driven. Like I have all of that, but there's a balance. I feel like the power is magnificence when I'm in my feminine. I feel like I'm radiant in my purpose when I'm in my feminine. There's that masculine trait and support and container, but it's almost like I'm operating completely in my feminine with masculine traits, as opposed to completely masculine with feminine traits, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's this beautiful dance, right? It's really the having them come into unity and communion together and work in harmony together. Yeah. So in what ways, because, being in business for yourself can sometimes feel like you're by yourself, and there's a lot of things that are very structure-based and masculine oriented to keep a business running. So how do you make sure that you're continuing to nurture your beautiful divine feminine and make sure that she's continuing to be ignited and keep the structure of your business going?
Yeah. So for me, what I've found is what is most supportive to me is simplified systems and consistency in that. And so when it gets too complicated is when I know that's egoic and it's more of like my toxic masculine. It's like, we have to have all these bells and whistles. So for me, it's having a funnel that's really simple. It reaches a lot of people. It gets the main message out there. It brings people in consistently. I love that flow. That's the more like feminine, like in and out and in and out. So people are coming in and out, and that feels really good. So they're opting in, and sometimes they're opting out at the end. But whenever that's running, when I know there's new people floating in, that feels really good for me. Consistent income, even if it's just $27, seeing that money there coming in towards me every single day feels really good, because I equate it also to the masculine. I mean, money is by nature flowing in and out. It's coming and going. Right. It's that very that is a masculine thing, when they're, that you get too close, they rubber band and they come back. They rubber band and they come back. I mean, it's a very masculine thing. And so knowing that it's always there, sometimes in excess and sometimes not, but it's always coming back. The systems have really given that to me. So I have the creative space to create whatever I want organically. So we've got the systems and the content running on its own systematically, the doing. And then I get to just wake up on a Tuesday and talk about what it is that I want or what's coming through me. And there's also that space for the growth too. We can always just change the funnel out a little bit as it grows with me. So that's kind of how we've done it, is simplifying everything to the point of releasing team and just being like, now it's even more complicated. I'm not doing this. We're going to bring it down to the basics and we're going to simplify again. And I'll just keep doing that every single level. Because to me, that is the most supportive thing, is the simplified systems.
And it sounds like you're really listening to what is needed next in your business or in you, right? To keep it operating the way that is true for you. It's not so like black and white, it flows. Like things are going to change a little.
When you're really in your feminine, there's just this death and rebirth that is happening. There's ADHD, which we talked about a little bit too. I'm like, I got that. But there's also this there's this death and rebirth process that happens, and your business has to be able to be agile. It cannot be so rigid that it can't be changed or, fixed or problem solved in order to be able to grow with that next version of you. And I find that when there's too much red tape, like I've hired ads people before, I've hired agencies before, and I'm just like, it's too rigid. It's not agile. Like one thing goes off and it's just not adaptable. It just doesn't work. So keeping them simple, then you can take them apart and put them together really, really quickly for the next level. That's what I think is so important.
So what do you do for yourself personally to nurture yourself and stay in harmony?
So the, journaling in the morning, just tapping into like what it is that I do want to create, like what feels correct for me. Envisioning that, sometimes stretching. A lot of the times it's going to be emoting, because I have this open emotional center that needs to be proactively moved. That energy needs to be proactively processed, as opposed to people that have it defined. They're processing their emotions all day long in their own way. I think the people that have it open need a process to do that. So sometimes I'll scream into my pillow, punch my pillow. Routine. I eat the same thing every single day for the morning. I'm a creature of habit. I mean, down to like, if I have B-dubs one day, I will have B-dubs every day for weeks. Like, it's just, I just fall into patterns. So trying to set up healthy patterns for me. So in the mornings I eat the same thing every single day. And that feels really empowering to me. That really nurtures it's like my little boy is just feeding going to get the food for my little girl, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
The doing has been really supportive to the more feminine. And then reading is always really good for me. Dancing. That's how I blew up on TikTok, was like dancing, but also teaching people. And then getting dressed and my makeup and creativity, all of those things. Every Friday I take a Venus bath, like a goddess bath. I put all these little things in
beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
It's Fridays are Venus days. So I feel like so many little things that I do as feminine, I just don't even, it's like I'm more embodied at this point. Emotional availability.
Yeah. Oh, that's big. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, those are beautiful because you're nurturing you and taking care of you. Yeah. So since you may have already touched on this, but maybe we can elaborate a little bit more. So since igniting and aligning with your divine feminine, how have you seen that it's transformed your business?
So I'm more postured for favor, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to make things happen. I'm in my feminine receptivity. I'm not trying to make things happen. And because I'm a manifesting generator, there is that balance of, I want to create this, I see this vision, and then being in my feminine and attracting to me the next step, as opposed to being in my masculine, like, how are we going to fix this problem? Or just doing and saying things to make something happen. For me, that's how it's changed. It's in flow. It's more fluid, and I'm just more radiant. People can always tell, and they've actually mirrored it back to me, like when I'm at capacity. They're like, you're just not glowing like you usually do. And just an affirmation of how I already feel. But they're just like, I can always tell when you're at capacity, when your container's, getting ready to break and it needs to widen a little bit, because I'm just not magnificent. I'm playing small, and I'm being, and I'm overanalyzing, and I'm judging, and I'm stressed, and I'm anxious, and it doesn't attract. It's not attractive.
Sure. It's not. Yeah. It's not
So being attractive within my business is literally my one thing that is the priority to me. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. If I'm not attractive, like not just physically, but energetically.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so with human design in your business, Paige, how are you, whatever client that comes to you, how do you support them with really igniting their divine feminine with their human design? We talked about manifesting generator, but maybe kind of give us some different scenarios on all the different designs.
So when somebody first comes to me, I always like to look at why they're not already living their design first and foremost. Like, who do you think that you are? Who do you think that you needed to be? Because that is the killer of your feminine. Usually and your masculine, but really truly you're being something that you think you need to be. And that is soul crushing. So I look at my book, The Patterns, which everybody gets access to, helps me identify what patterns are showing up in people's lives that are taking them out of alignment, out of their feminine, out of their balance. So first we look at that and we just get to a place of self-awareness and self-acceptance. Like, this is what everything you have right now has been created from these open centers, and like, let's forgive ourselves. We didn't know, now we do. How are they showing up in your practical day-to-day lives? How can we, what tool or methodology can we use? Some people like the Sedona method, some people like EFT, some people, I have a whole process that I use. Some people like existential kink. There's a lot of different ways to work with the patterns. Then looking at your human design type helps you figure out how to be in flow of life. And to me, that's like the more feminine way of life, is to just kind of lean back and surrender and submit almost to life. Like, as you're the feminine and life is this masculine force that's like the container. It's created this container for you. So once you learn what your type is, you know how you're meant to interact with life. And from there, looking at how you make decisions, because all day long we're deciding, and everything we've ever created is based off a choice and a decision that we've made. And most of them have been incorrect or logical. So it's really important to look at how you're made to make decisions. Everybody's different. So that is the process for me, is looking at the pattern that's getting in the way, looking at who you really are, what you genuinely want to create in this life, how you can work with life, submit to life, that feminine submission, allowing life to bring you, do the work, let life go out and go out and do the work and bring you the thing.
That's good.
And then the thing comes to you, and then you can make an aligned decision based on your decision making that you can trust. And that's another thing with the femininity, is you have got to be able to trust the masculine. You've got to be able to trust life. You've got to be able to trust yourself first. And that's how you become trusting of life and the masculine. So that's the process for me. And from there, you can create whatever it is that you want. The issue is we've created so much that we thought we wanted. And then we got it and we're like, I didn't want this. I'm not happy. So then we start thinking that there's something wrong with us. Like, I don't know what I want. I can't trust myself. So just, getting to the patterns, releasing that. And then those three things, once you do that, when you start living that, your whole life changes.
Being a magnet for miracles is
yes.
what I call that, right?
Because you're a walking, talking
divine.
miracle.
Yeah.
When you really align to yourself, you are the miracle that you were born to be.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. That's exciting. So folks, if you're not familiar with human design or what that's all about, read more on Paige's services. She's also got a beautiful free gift for you also, if you want to touch on that, share with us what your free gift is.
My book, The Patterns, it talks about the patterns, and it gives you a brief introduction to human design, but then it mostly focuses on the centers and the patterns that are keeping you stuck right now, so you can identify the biggest ones that you've got. And from there, I give you resources to start shifting that immediately. We have to get supported in learning how to align themselves with what they came here to do.
Any last words for our viewers and our audience?
Just thank you for being open to this conversation. It's really, really important. And I'm excited for you all to learn more about this work.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Paige, for being part of this beautiful event with us and sharing and just bringing some more insight to human design and what that's all about, so that more women can step into their divine feminine and be living from their heart-centered and true purpose. So thank you again.